So listen, guys. The other day, I apparently gave off a really hot take that upset a lot of you guys, which was that God of War 3, from a story perspective, wasn't good. And this goes into all of the lore from God of War. Now, my issue with God of War 3 is that it's not good. Listen, the game is fine. I'm going to replay it. But story-wise, God of War 1, you are the anti-hero who literally gave up your humanity to serve a god. And the god manipulated you into killing your own family. Sad stuff, okay? So you're like the anti-hero, but you're still a bad person doing a good thing only because it goes against you, right? You have no like, oh, I want to be better for the world, right? Now, at the end of that one, the gods were like, yeah, we'll forgive you for your stuff. He interpreted it as that you will make me forget, because his skin was permanently white from a curse of his like family's dead ashes. That's what it is. Like, that's the curse, and he wanted to get like alleviated the curse. The gods couldn't do it, I guess, and they're like, no, we forgive you as gods, but that meant nothing to Kratos, so he got frustrated. God of War 2 rolls around. They made him a god of war. Obviously, they did that at the end of the first one. And like, he's gone mad with power. Part of him hates the gods. The gods aren't horrible people, but he's angry at the gods for feeling like they betrayed him. Okay, so that's perfectly fine. But the reality is you are a bad person weaponizing your power as the god of war to make sure that your people, the Spartans, win all the wars and you harass the fuck out of other people. You are doing a bad thing on the world. So Zeus has to step in and he has to intervene and take your power, trick you into taking your power, right? And then you die, which you should, because you're being bad. You're the protagonist, but you are a bad person. In the second game, you are like unequivocally bad. You work with the Titans, you release them, you use some time powers, very cool. And that's where we go to God of War 3, right? And it's a really cool thing. God of War 3, you want to kill all the gods and take your vengeance, but the Titans betray you in some capacity, right? But it turns out, I think everybody, I know at least Zeus, was corrupted by Pandora's box that you released in the first game, which you needed that power to defeat Ares because you're not a god. And you needed that to defeat Ares. Of course, we find out in God of War 2 that you're actually like half a god in some capacity. That's why you can go toe-to-toe. Your Zeus is one of his very many illegitimate kids, which is very, very canonically true in like just the mythology. So yeah, so your whole thing is exacting revenge. You're the bad guy until they decide to create a plot point where all of a sudden you're justified in your actions because the Pandora's box that was released makes them, it's like, well, Zeus was being a meanie to you because he was corrupted. And that's the only reason he did the thing he did. No, motherfucker, he had to take your powers because you were literally upsetting like the balance of power of like war and causing your people to win every war and just killing people. Yeah, Kratos was the victim of like shitty god manipulation, but he was doing a bad thing and the guys were justified in doing what they did. That's the problem with God of War 3. God of War 4 rolls around, you have a wife and a kid and whatnot. Great game. Love that. No problem with that story. I actually like that they kind of revitalized it in a really cool way. But God of War 3 was not good lore-wise. Also, Zeus at the end was too easy. So, let's watch this video and see where I got it wrong.
War for PS4. With the upcoming God of War for PS4, we see series protagonist Kratos taking on a new
This is from the first like God of War 4. Like this is up until God of War 4. This doesn't include God of War 4.
mythological foe. So we here at Suggestive Gaming figured now would be a good time to go over Kratos' first set of opposition, the Greek Pantheon. So strap yourself in because this is what you need to know about the entire original God of War saga, from start to finish. Our story begins with the Primordials, the very first beings to come into existence, fighting for control of their creation, Earth. This war ravished the world, and eventually the three
This is God of War Ascension, which is one of like I think it was like a PS Vita game or something.
Furies were born from the rage and power of the battle. The Furies were then tasked to honor oaths between the various beings of Earth. Their first victim was...
And I consider these to an extent like filler games. 1, 2, and 3 are more canonical to me. Like that's just how I feel, but you know.
The Hecatoncheires, Aegeon, who had broken an oath to one of the first gods, Zeus. To make an example of Aegeon, the Furies petrify his body into the prison of the damned for anyone who dared to break an oath in the future. Eventually, the Furies began to take guidance from the god of war, Ares, who convinced them to join him in a siege on Olympus. Believing their forces to be too weak, the queen of the Furies, Alecto, birthed a son with Ares, hoping to create a powerful warrior. This warrior, Orcos, proved to be a failure in Ares' eyes and was disowned. However, the Furies decided to use him as their oath keeper. With Ares still in search for his warrior to help take over Olympus, Zeus hears of a prophecy foretelling his death at the hands of one of his sons, a marked warrior. Ares is then tasked to find and dispose of this threat. Ares discovers Deimos, a young Spartan who bore a birthmark all over his body, and storms the city to capture him. During the kidnapping, Deimos' brother, another young Spartan by the name of Kratos, attempts to stop the god, but he is struck down, leaving a scar over his right eye. Ares attempts to kill Kratos for this, but his sister, Athena, the goddess of war, convinces him to spare the boy. Deimos is then taken to the god of death, Thanatos, to prevent the prophecy and protect Zeus. Kratos, tortured by his inability to save his brother, vows to never fail like that again and tattoos a replica of Deimos' birthmark on himself in remembrance. Kratos' rage and pain remained with him as he became a leading member of the Spartan army, eventually marrying a Spartan woman named Lysandra, and the two have a daughter whom they name Calliope. Calliope unfortunately contracts a plague, which infects her skin and causes the Spartan authorities to decide for her to be thrown into a chasm and left to die. Kratos then sets off to find the cure for her disease, a mysterious element with the exceptional healing abilities called ambrosia. Unbeknownst to Kratos, the gods had a wager in which they selected various heroes whom they believed would be the first to obtain the ambrosia. Kratos was chosen by Ares, likely due to their prior run-in in which Kratos displayed his resilience and bravery. After battling the other gods' selected heroes, Kratos fights a climactic battle with an army of barbarians and their leader Ulrich, who was trying to retrieve the ambrosia to heal his own father. Kratos eventually bests Ulrich and captures the ambrosia, but at the cost of many of his men. Upon returning to Sparta, Kratos heals his daughter, and the king of Sparta bestows on him the title of captain. As captain of the Spartan army, Kratos leads his men to many victorious
Where are we at right now?
battles, often slaying scores of enemies with an increasing hunger for power, despite the wishes of his wife. Eventually, Kratos comes across a familiar enemy, the barbarian king Ulrich, who still blames Kratos for his father's death. Kratos and his army are no match for the rebuilt barbarian army, and Kratos, moments away from death at the hands of Ulrich, calls out to Ares in desperation. Ares, seeing a candidate to overthrow Olympus, accepts Kratos' offer of loyalty and kills the barbarians in exchange. He then gives Kratos the Blades of Chaos, symbolizing his...
What's weird is like all that prequel shit that just happened was like a really weird filler into the story that already existed of God of War, and like doesn't really fit super well into it, in my opinion, because like it kind of reframes like because Kratos doesn't want to die, so he accepts his power.
Servitude to the God of War. Under Ares' loyalty, Kratos slays many innocents, razes villages, and spreads chaos in the name of him. Under Ares' influence, Kratos slowly loses his humanity with every battle fought for the god. Soon, Kratos is tasked to raid a village of Athena's followers due to Ares' jealousy of Athena, whom their father Zeus favored. There, he encounters an oracle who warns Kratos of dark things awaiting him inside the city's temple. Kratos ignores this warning and enters the temple, blindly slaughtering those inside. However, afterwards, Kratos comes to realize that those inside the temple were none other than his beloved wife Lysandra and daughter Calliope. Ares reveals that he had transported them there secretly in order to sever Kratos' human ties and create the perfect warrior. Kratos leaves the bodies of his family inside the temple to burn, and as he exits, the oracle curses him, binding the ashes of his wife and child to Kratos' skin, forcing him to wear another reminder of his failures and turning him into the ghost of Sparta.
How do you not recognize your own wife's big fat titties? Because she has some big tits, bro. That's the biggest problem I have.
Kratos then renounces his allegiance to Ares and breaks his oath, causing the Furies to hunt him down and torture him with endless illusions. Kratos then finds himself trapped in an illusion of his former home in Sparta.
This has got to wear Ascension now.
Orcos appears before him and helps him break the illusion using Lysandra's necklace and ring. Orcos then convinces Kratos to seek out Aletheia, the Oracle at Delphi. He finds the Oracle captured, but is unable to prevent her from being mortally wounded. Before her death, she informs Kratos that the only way he can be free of his oath to Ares would be to slay the Oath's enforcers, the Three Furies. Kratos returns to Orcos, who informs him of Ares' true intentions all along to use him to overthrow Zeus. With this knowledge, Kratos travels to Delos to slay the Furies. Upon his arrival, however, he is ambushed and captured by them, and they proceed to torture him in the prison of the damned. After 2 weeks of torture, one of the Furies leaves an opening for Kratos to exploit and escape his imprisonment. After various battles and illusions, Kratos is able to outsmart and outfight the Furies, slaying all 3 of them. After the death of the Furies, Kratos returns to his home in Sparta, where he finds Orcos, who reveals to Kratos that while he had killed the Furies, they transferred Kratos' oath to him, keeping the bond with Ares intact. Orcos hands Kratos his blade and asks him for an honorable death in order to permanently end Ares' hold on them. Kratos complies, killing Orcos and burning his home with the former Oathkeeper's body still inside. No longer under servitude to Ares, Kratos dedicates his life to serving the gods of Olympus as their trusted warrior. After defeating an invading Persian army for the gods, Kratos appears before them to ask for his next task. Suddenly, however, he sees the sun fall from the sky, enveloping the world in darkness. Kratos follows the last trace of light he can see to the temple of Helios. After speaking to Athena, Kratos concludes that Helios had been captured, allowing the god of dreams Morpheus to entrance other gods into a deep sleep, allowing him to take control of Greece. Inside the temple, Ios, Helios' sister, tasks Kratos to awaken her brother's fire steeds in order to find him. In return, she promises to relieve Kratos of his nightmares, which haunt him in the form of a melody his daughter used to play on her flute. He does this, and the steeds take him to Helios' location, the Underworld. There, he meets Charon, the ferryman on the river Styx, who ultimately denies Kratos passage, as it is not his time. Kratos engages him, but is knocked unconscious and thrown into Tartarus, the darkest depths of the underworld where the Titans had been chained by Zeus. Upon waking, Kratos witnesses Atlas's chains broken, and the Titan missing. Kratos fights his way through Tartarus, eventually climbing out to confront Charon once again. After defeating him, Kratos uses his ferry to follow Helios' light down the river Styx to a temple. There, Kratos sees his daughter upon the shore. He follows her inside, but instead finds Persephone, the queen of the underworld. Persephone
I think I played this game. I think I played Chains of Olympus and the main 3 games.
Reveals to Kratos that he can meet his daughter once again, and she is now residing in the Elysium Fields. Persephone tells Kratos that to see his daughter, he must make a sacrifice, to give up all of his weapons and powers given to him by the gods. Kratos
It's such an interesting trend in like every game where he has to give up his powers because he's already so powerful.
Does this, transferring his powers into the Forsaken Tree, and regains his humanity. He reunites with his daughter, but the reunion is interrupted by Persephone, who reveals her true intentions. She reveals that it was her who released Atlas, whom she tasked with destroying the pillar that holds the earth. She intends for this to kill everyone, including herself, to free her from her imprisonment.
I think I remember in like God of War 1, Or is this after God of War 1? Oh, it is.
By Hades as his wife. Kratos painfully makes the decision to give up his ability to see his daughter and regains his weapons from the tree. Doing this, he once again becomes the ghost of Sparta and, against his daughter's wishes, takes off to stop Persephone. Kratos finds the queen at the base of the pillar, and she carries him to the top. There, the two engage in a final battle. During this battle, Persephone attempts to confuse Kratos and convince him to return to Elysium to be with his daughter. Kratos resists this, however, and Persephone orders Atlas to take care of him. Atlas does not get this chance, however, as Kratos chains the Titan to the ceiling of the underworld and returns to Persephone, besting her in battle and killing her. Her body explodes, destroying the pillar and leaving Atlas as the only thing holding the world together. Atlas, though defeated, taunts Kratos as he remains a slave to the gods. Kratos accepts this fate as he can only hope that serving the gods will cause them to one day free him from his nightmares. Atlas then predicts to Kratos that they will meet again before Kratos leaves to return Helios to the sky. Weak, and now knowing that his sins will never allow him to see his daughter again, Kratos falls from the chariot, landing on a cliff overlooking the Aegean Sea. Sometime after waking, Kratos is sent into the sea to kill a Hydra and return peace to the waters. After doing so, he is
This is God of War 1 again? Wait, Chains of Olympus comes in between... Oh, right, because they did the pretext in God of War. Okay, so this is where the game happens. Gotcha. But I'm pretty sure... So they were referencing God of War originally, but the game wasn't actually happening at that point. That was just some of the story. What's interesting is I'm pretty sure in God of War, I'm pretty sure there was a moment where they're like, this was the first time he's ever met a god or something. I remember that in one of these games, but he had already met Persephone, so it was a little bit of a weird, like, canon issue.
Approached by Athena, who asks Kratos to save her city, Athens, from her brother Ares, whose army is currently advancing. Kratos, seeing an opportunity to get revenge on Ares, agrees on the condition that the gods free him of his nightmares once and for all, as well as offer him a chance at redemption. Yeah. Kratos enters Athens to find the town's oracle.
Yeah, you can see her titties. That's the best part. You can see that. You can see her big fat fucking titties, bro. All right, I'm being a little mature, but you can see her boobs. It's crazy.
Tells him that in order for a mortal to defeat a god, he must seek the power of Pandora's box, which is locked inside a temple constructed on the back of the Titan Kronos, who Zeus cursed to wander the desert of lost souls for eternity.
So just so you guys know, the reason that he did is because Kronos tried to eat his like entire family. Because Kronos is his dad. You gotta look at the mythology; it's fucking crazy. There was like lore that he was going to be overthrown by his son, so he like tried to eat all of his kids and shit. And then the mom, I forgot the name of the fucking mom was like, no, and hid the kid. And he had him eat a rock instead. It's crazy shit. And he came back and Zeus defeated him afterwards and cursed him to doing this, apparently. Although I don't think that part is canon. Like, well, it isn't here, but it's not, like, in actual mythology.
Kratos makes his way to the temple, encountering a mysterious gravedigger on the way. Inside the temple, Kratos solves several puzzles in order to find Pandora's box. However, Ares senses this and throws a pillar from Athens, impaling Kratos and killing him.
Yep.
Ares then arrives and steals the box as Kratos dies and returns to the underworld. However, with help from the gravedigger, who refers to Kratos as my child, he is able to climb from Hades and return to Athens. There, he opens Pandora's box and gains the power to confront Ares. After a battle, Ares tortures Kratos by forcing him to relive his family's death at his hands. Kratos resists this, however, and Ares is forced to strip the blades of chaos from Kratos' arms and kills the illusions of his family in front of him. Freed from the illusion, Kratos finds a nearby sword being used as an ornamental bridge and uses it to kill the god of war. The gods praise Kratos for killing.
It was a cool moment. First of all, that fight was hard, at least when I did it back in the day. It was so hard, but it was cool that you would run across that bridge to get to that area, and then they use that like as a weapon. So it was just very interesting.
The rebelling Ares. Kratos then asks Athena to finally free him of his nightmares. Athena then finally reveals to Kratos that while she can forgive his sins, his nightmares will stay with him forever. Kratos, feeling abandoned by the gods, climbs back to the cliffs overlooking the Aegean Sea, and feeling death as his only escape, throws himself off.
They should have let him die, honestly.
However, Athena stops him at the bottom, claiming that there is now an empty throne upon Olympus. Kratos then enters a portal and claims his throne as the new God of War.
What's cool, though, is that they never intended to make a God of War 2, so you can look at the ending from God of War 1, and, like, he's God of War throughout, like, all time and causes, like, every war that ever happens. It's a cool little ending. God of War 1 was incredible. I loved that game a lot. I think God of War 2 really polished it up and, like, was better gameplay-wise, because it made the improvements that like needed to be made, which were like some of the issues, like some small issues, like well, the way you open chests was like a little I think you had to hold R1 and then hit like box or something, or you had to keep tapping R1, which was like kind of annoying and it would hurt your finger. So they made it like you hold R1 and hit O a bunch of times. It was just like stuff like that. They kind of improved the system, made it a little better, made it a little cleaner, really improved they really like contributed to the story in a really good way. By the time God of War 3 came out, they were like looking for new like ideas, so they added like 4 different weapons ideas, which was kind of weird to me, but
still haunted by his memories, Kratos decides to explore his past against Athena's wishes. He makes his way to the Temple of Poseidon in Atlantis. Poseidon attempts to stop Kratos, but he defeats his defenses and reaches the city. There, Kratos finds, much to his surprise, his mother, Callisto, dying on the ground. She reveals to him that his father is the one who brought her there, and that his brother Deimos is still alive, but does not have much time. Before dying, she tells Kratos to seek out his brother in Sparta. Kratos then departs Atlantis, but not before encountering the Titan Thera, whom he frees, destroying the city in a flood. Kratos returns to Sparta, but on his way encounters and kills Thanatos' daughter, Erinyes. Upon his arrival to the city, he is praised by its inhabitants, led by a young Spartan who gives Kratos his arms from when he was the commander of the Spartan army. Kratos goes to the Temple of Ares, and after encountering a spirit-like vision of his younger self, he learns that he must return to Atlantis to find Death's domain.
He beats the shit out of
Upon returning, however, Kratos is stopped
I gotta play all these games.
by a statue of Poseidon, inhabited by the god, who warns him that he will pay for sinking the kingdom of Atlantis. Kratos avoids the statue and makes his way through the ruins of the city, eventually coming across the Gravedigger once again, who cryptically warns Kratos not to alienate the gods. Kratos then finds the gateway to Death's domain.
Do you see how, like, looking through this, like, the gods are not good, the good guys in this instance? You know, or excuse me, Kratos is really not the good guy in this instance. He's about to sink a whole fucking city.
Inside, Kratos finds and frees his brother, who becomes enraged at him for seemingly forgetting about him for all this time. Thanatos arrives and intervenes, capturing Deimos and bringing him to the same cliff Kratos attempted to kill himself from. Kratos saves his brother and the two reconcile. Kratos gives Deimos his arms, and the two fight Thanatos together. During the battle, Thanatos kills Deimos, and Kratos avenges his brother by finally killing the god of death. A broken Kratos then carries his brother up the mountain, where the Gravedigger has
The god of death? Was that the actual god of death? Wait, oh. Okay. Was Hades not the god of death?
prepared a grave for him. Kratos ponders what he has become, and the Gravedigger answers,
I'm a little confused.
Death, the destroyer of worlds. Athena appears before
Is that like a different god? What? Who's Thanatos? Let me look that up. Like, I'm
him and
confused.
attempts to elevate him to a full god. Kratos stops her, however, and returns to Olympus, claiming that the gods will pay for what they have done to Kratos and his family. As he leaves, Athena mythically refers to him as brother. The Gravedigger then buries
Oh, he's the god or personified spirit of a non-violent death. Interesting. Okay.
Callisto next to Deimos and proclaims upon a third grave that now only one remains, as Kratos returns to his throne and plans his next move against the gods, leading his Spartan army to conquer Greece.
When all these games came out.
After launching this attack, Athena pleads with Kratos to stop. He claims to owe her nothing and turns his back on her to assist his army in the town of Rhodes.
Even with the prequels, still, Kratos, I understand why he feels the way he does, bro. But this motherfucker is the bad guy. All right? What did the gods do to him? Realistically speaking. They didn't uphold their end of, well, they upheld their end of the bargain. They can't break the curse, dude. He's got to live with it forever. And he's angry at his fucking shit. Ares was also kind of an asshole. But he killed that motherfucker, bro. Come on.
There he spots an eagle, whom he believes to be Athena in disguise, whom robs him of his godly abilities, and instead infuses them into the Colossus of Rhodes, who comes to life and tries to kill Kratos. Zeus arrives and offers Kratos the Blade of Olympus, which he once used to win the great war between the gods and the Titans. Zeus urges Kratos to infuse the blades with his remaining godly powers, which renders him mortal once again, but allows him to destroy the Colossus from the inside. Upon doing this, however, Kratos is crushed by the Colossus' severed hand. Determining that he must retrieve the Blade of Olympus to get his immortality back, he slowly makes his way over to it, only to be stopped by Zeus, who reveals himself to be the eagle that stole Kratos' power, in an attempt to kill him to stop him from overthrowing Zeus as he did with Ares. Zeus then stabs Kratos, killing him.
It makes sense. He was becoming just like Ares. He was becoming just like the person he fought to kill. Kratos is just not very responsible with his power, dude.
While he is being dragged into the underworld once more, the mother of the Titans, Gaia, saves him and reveals that Kronos, Zeus' father, ate all of his children in an attempt to stop the prophecy that he would die at the hands of one of his sons.
True.
Zeus' mother, however, hid him on an island that was actually Gaia. Gaia raised the boy, but he grew vengeful and eventually sought to defeat the Titans, which he did by using the Blade of Olympus. Gaia offers to help Kratos exact revenge on the king of Olympus. Gaia gives Kratos the magical horse Pegasus, and he escapes the underworld to find the Sisters of Fate in order to change his past and kill Zeus.
This game is
Kratos
so fucking good, dude. It was so good.
Flies to the island of creation, and after besting several powerful foes, including a risen Ulrich, he comes across Icarus, whom he strips of his wings, plummeting below the earth and landing upon Atlas. Originally refusing to help Kratos, still holding begrudgment over his imprisonment at the Spartans' hands, Atlas is eventually persuaded to help him kill Zeus. Atlas helps Kratos return to the surface, where he awakens the Phoenix and flies to the Temple of the Fates to meet the sisters. There he expresses his wishes, but the sisters deny him passage. Kratos then confronts
She had boobies.
Temple of the Fates.
She had boobies. They censored the boobies.
There he expresses his wishes, but
They censored her. Oh, I think they censored her boobie. I remember her having a boobie nipple there. They censored
the
it.
sisters deny him passage. Kratos then confronts the youngest sisters, Lachesis and Atropos, who attempt to take him back to his battle with Ares and force him to die by the god's hand in the past. He avoids this effort and traps the sisters in a mirror, then destroying it to seal them away for eternity. Kratos then makes his way to the eldest sister, Clotho, who operates
She's so fat, bro. It's crazy.
the Loom of Fate. Kratos kills the final
It's like killing my ex-girlfriend.
sister and takes control of the loom to change his fate. He turns the thread of fate back to his death at the hands of Zeus and saves his past self by reclaiming the Blade of Olympus before Zeus has a chance to. The two then engage in a battle until Zeus stuns Kratos with a lightning.
Bro, this battle was incredible. It was so hard. That battle was so fucking difficult. It was such a good fight. I remember that.
Kratos plays possum and pins Zeus before driving the Blade of Olympus into the god's chest. Before he can kill him, however, Athena appears and intervenes to protect Olympus.
And then he
Zeus
kills
attempts
Athena.
to escape, Kratos lunges at him with the blade, and Athena sacrifices herself by jumping in front of it, saving her father. Kratos asks Athena why she would do this, and she reveals that she did it to allow Zeus to stop the cycle of sons killing their fathers, finally revealing that Kratos is in fact a son of Zeus. Vowing to destroy Olympus, Kratos returns to the loom and turns back time all the way to the Great War. He calls out to Gaia, and they return to Kratos' time, where an injured Zeus is called
Instead of just turning back time to save Athena. He just is like, all right, fuck that bitch. She's dead, you know.
Calling on his fellow gods to kill Kratos. The Titan army, led by Kratos, then storm Olympus with the intent to win the Great War.
Let's keep that in mind, dude. He feels bad for her dying, but he could have stopped. He could have went back in time and stopped it.
Once and for all. The Titans and gods wage a very intense and bloody battle as Poseidon begins to take on Gaia. Kratos draws him into Gaia's grasp and is able to weaken him, eventually knocking.
All right, so here's one of the issues I have with the game. The first boss you fight is Poseidon. Poseidon, Hades, Zeus, all arguably the same power. Makes sense that you would be. It's a little anticlimactic in my opinion because you kill Poseidon first, but you do have all the powers of the Titans, and I think you still have the blade of Olympus. So you have your old powers of a god. So it makes sense that you can beat him as a first boss and why he would be arguably kind of easy. After you lose all your powers, though, you fight fucking Hades and you beat him with none of your powers. It doesn't make fucking sense, okay?
Him onto a platform and beating him before gouging his eyes out and snapping his neck, killing him and flooding the entire world. Kratos and the Titans then make it to the top of Olympus and confront Zeus, who, anticipating their arrival, hits them with a blast of lightning, damages Gaia, and knocks her and Kratos off the mountain. Attempting to hang on, Kratos is then betrayed by Gaia, who lets him fall as he is no longer a use to them now that they have reached Zeus's throne.
And that doesn't make any sense either. All of a sudden, she's like, yeah, fuck you, Kratos. We don't need you anymore. That doesn't make any... It just didn't make sense for her to do that. Especially since, like, he could kill the gods. It really made no fucking sense that they would just instantly betray Kratos at that moment when he's at his, like, strongest. It just doesn't.
After falling once again to his death, Kratos makes his way through the river Styx, lamenting that he was used as a pawn by both the gods and the Titans.
And he loses all his power.
He then reunites with a reformed Athena, who is willing to help Kratos from her new level of existence.
And she gives him the rage of the Spartans. He used to have the rage of the gods and the Titans. Now he gets some fucking rage of the Spartans.
He then realizes the goal of his final quest, extinguishing the flame of Olympus in order to finally defeat Zeus. To do this, however, he must find Pandora, the child of Pandora's box's namesake. Kratos makes his way through Hades and eventually finds Hades' palace, and the dead body of Persephone. Hades arrives and the two battle before Kratos defeats the god, sealing his soul into his own weapons.
It just doesn't make... How does he fucking beat Hades? You understand, this is the issue I have with this game. He has none of his real powers. He lost his god and his titan powers, and he beats possibly the strongest god, one of the three strongest gods. Okay, he struggled to beat Zeus one-on-one. Okay, and then with all of his power. And now, with no fucking power, he gets his fucking... it doesn't make sense. This is what bothered me.
Kratos then escapes Hades through a gate and encounters Helios, whose head Kratos proceeds to rip off. He then encounters Hermes, who he kills, and later his own
Hades shouldn't have been mid.
Brother Hercules, whom he also kills. Kratos meets with Aphrodite and her husband Hephaestus in order to find their daughter Pandora. Hephaestus refuses to lead Kratos to her, however, and reveals that after Kratos opened Pandora's box, Zeus became overcome with fear and forced Hephaestus to reveal to the creation of the key of the box, which later took on a life of its own as a girl whom he named Pandora. Zeus then took Pandora and banished Hephaestus. Kratos urges Hephaestus, who tasks him with retrieving the Omphalos stone.
I remember it was like more than that. It was like, Pandora's box poisoned Zeus's mind. That's why he's so mean to you. No, dude. This is what bothers me about God of War 3. It's poop. Like, it's not fully poop. The game's not horrible. It doesn't ruin the whole series. But do you see how there's like all these like weird inconsistencies that already happen? Doesn't make sense, bro.
Stone in order to make a weapon to allow Kratos to find Pandora. In his attempt to find the stone, Kratos comes across Kronos, who assumes he has tried to kill Gaia and attacks him. Kratos fights Kronos and eventually frees the temple from the Titan's body before he eats Kratos. Inside his stomach, Kratos retrieves the Omphalos stone and cuts his way out and kills Kronos once and for all. Kratos confronts Hephaestus, who reveals that he was trying to send him on a suicide mission. Hephaestus attempts to feign innocence before trying to kill Kratos instead. Kratos shakes this off and kills him by impaling him on his own anvil before heading off to retrieve Pandora. Kratos' quest takes him to the gardens of Olympus, where he finds Hera, the wife of Zeus, drunken and belligerent. After making his way through the
I would be too if my fucking husband was constantly cheating on me. Zeus used to do that shit all the time, bro.
Hera confronts Kratos once again, insulting Pandora and causing Kratos to lash out and snap her neck.
What I find weird though is that back in the day there were so many people who were like the sons of or I guess the daughters of Zeus because he would go on and like fuck people. How many of those do you think were like people who just wanted them to think that they had godly powers? You know, and they're like, yeah, I'm a son of Zeus.
Causing all plant life to die. Kratos makes it to the labyrinth and finds Daedalus, the labyrinth's architect. Trapped inside, Daedalus claims that Zeus promised him that he would have his son Icarus back once he completed the labyrinth. Kratos reveals that Icarus was in fact dead before activating a trap and killing the architect. Inside the labyrinth, Kratos finds Pandora and takes her with him. In the flame of Olympus' chamber, Kratos raises the...
Also, by the way, another thing that I had a problem with this game is Kratos talks so fucking much in this game. You might think I'm nitpicking, but I think I've done a decent job at least showing you why the game was less than it could have been. Because all the issues that happened in this game could have easily been like worked on by just thinking a little bit more around the box, and like the game overall could have been better. All right, But he talked so fucking much when in the first and second game, he would barely talk. He would yell occasionally. He would grunt. Sometimes he'd be like, Ares, fuck you. You know, that was it. All of a sudden, this motherfucker does not shut the fuck up, right? In the new game, the God of War, like the God of War, whatever, that one makes sense for him to talk a little more because he's now more human and has a son. Right? But it doesn't make sense in the God of War 3, dude.
Labyrinth to access Pandora's box. However, Kratos refuses to let Pandora sacrifice her life, as he does not want to cause her death as he did his own daughters. She chooses to embrace her fate, however, and breaks free, only to be stopped by Zeus. Zeus mocks Kratos for showing care for Pandora as if she was his own, and tosses her aside before engaging in battle with his son once again. During the battle,
This battle sucked, by the way.
Pandora attempts to run into the flame in order to put it out before Kratos grabs her to stop her. Pandora pleads with Kratos to let her seal her fate, and Zeus provokes him by telling him not to fail Pandora like he did his own family. Kratos reluctantly lets her go, and the flame of Olympus is extinguished. In the wake, Kratos opens Pandora's box once again, only to find that it is now empty. Zeus mocks his son once again, and the two meet outside and gaze upon the destruction Kratos has caused. The two are interrupted by Gaia, however, and she tries to kill them both. The two then enter a wound in Gaia's chest and fight beside her heart, draining the life out of it. Kratos, powered by the heart of Gaia, then impales Zeus into it with the blade of Olympus, finally killing both Gaia and his father Zeus. Awakening upon a broken earth, Kratos finds Zeus's body and retrieves the blade. However, as he tries to leave, Zeus's spirit attacks Kratos and drains him of his anger and willpower, replacing it with fear and loss, the forces that plagued his father. Trapped in his psyche and once again being tortured by his memories, the spirit of Pandora appears and helps Kratos abolish these torments through hope. Kratos returns to the physical world and forces Zeus' spirit back into his body. Kratos then charges him and beats him to death with his bare hands, finally killing him and destroying Olympus for good. Afterwards, Athena appears once more and congratulates Kratos, asking him to turn over the power he found inside Pandora's box so she could finally give it to mankind. Kratos laments that the world is destroyed, and anything she would have to give would be useless. More so, the box was empty, and Kratos believed Pandora had died in vain, simply another casualty in his quest for vengeance. Athena reveals to Kratos that when the evils of the Titans were first sealed into the box, she placed the most powerful weapon in the world beside them to counteract them, the power of hope. Athena had initially believed that when Kratos opened the box...
I mean, come on. The power of hope? Like, they're leaning on so many cliches. Power of hope. Pandora's box, corrupt. They didn't mention in this video, and I don't know why, but one of the things was like the Pandora's box, it poisoned Zeus's mind. Bro. God of War 3 was a little lame. The God of War 3 was kind of lame. It really was, unfortunately, and an amazing series that I still love. Okay? But it was disappointing. It was kind of lame. I understand why everybody likes it. But the fucking story kind of sucked. And I hold the story to a high standard because it used to not suck. And then that one came along and I'm like, eh. It made me shit a little bit in a bad way.
The first time, all of its evils had transferred unto him, and hope was lost. When in actuality, the evils went to the gods on Olympus, and hope was buried deep in Kratos under his pants. Only upon forgiving himself was the power able to release inside.
See, now all the gods. Look at you hear this?
Open the most powerful weapon in the world beside them to counteract them, the power of hope. Athena had initially believed that when Kratos opened the box for the first time, all of its evils had transferred unto him, and hope was lost. When in actuality, the evils went to the gods on Olympus, and hope was buried deep in Kratos under his pants.
Okay, so all the evils of the world when he opens Pandora's box magically went to the gods, so that, like, canonically, despite the fact that Kratos has been a bad guy the entire time, all of a sudden, the gods are the bad guys. That was their whole justifier for what Kratos was doing. They felt the need to make Kratos like a good person full of hope, rather than just let him be the dickheaded fucking anti-hero that he always loved. They felt like they had to make him the good guy. He never needed to be the good guy. Nobody fucking cared about that shit. Kratos was very human in the fact that, like, he was personally betrayed by the gods in a way that doesn't make the gods fundamentally bad. And then he acted on it because he's a protagonist. In the first two games, Kratos was the bad guy. You have to understand this. In the third game, they retconned him and made him the good guy. Protagonists having to be good is lazy writing. It didn't need to happen. And it kind of hurts the new game, because the new game is basically about how he's supposed to be reforming, and now he has a kid, and he's been more human. It makes it work a little less when you have, like, a magical fucking story majigger at the end of the story that's like, oh, no, he was a good guy the whole time. When you release Pandora's box, everybody became bad guys. What? Like, that's fucking, it doesn't sit right. I'm not saying the game is like absolute abysmal dog shit garbage, worst thing that ever happened to the world. But for a God of War game that beautifully crafted a really good story, and God of War 1 and 2 especially, God of War 3 is like a moment. God of War 3 is mediocre. That's all. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's very mediocre. There's a lot of things that just don't work the way that the story used to work. I'm not saying that it's like the final season of Game of Thrones bad, right? It's an okay ending. It's just a little disappointing because I had high expectations for this. Do I think it ruined it? I don't think it like ruined it. I think God of War 4, I'll call it, was incredible, and it like revitalized the series for me. It was incredible. But the bad writing in 3 is frustrating. But 4 was incredible. 4 was really good, and it completely like turned the series around for me and made me like the series a lot again. So from my perspective, I'm like, okay, they just had like a rough time ending 3, so it's like whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's not the worst fucking game in the entire world, but it definitely frustrating.
Only upon forgiving himself was the power able to release inside of him. Kratos, realizing he has nothing left to live for, impales himself with the blade of Olympus, freeing the power of hope into the mortal world. Athena is angered by this and tells Kratos that she is disappointed, to which he responds with a final laugh before she removes the blade, leaving him to die. Sometime later, we see the mural where Kratos' body once was, now abandoned, with nothing but a trail of blood leading to the great sea that now enveloped the world.
Wow.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys, and another special shout out to all my Patreon and Twitch subs. If you'd like to support this channel further than you already have by just watching the video alone, go down to the links below where you can sub on my Patreon, which will allow you to get your name on this beautiful black wall. Or you can go to the Twitch page and you can actually use a free Amazon Prime sub, if you have Amazon Prime, to subscribe. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.